Well, it looks like we got everybody we're going to get, so I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7:08.
We approve the minutes from the March 18th, 2020.
Did you hear Jerry's motion to accept the minutes?
No, I didn't, but I'll take your word for it and I'll second it.
Okay, we can move right into Deborah.
Okay, well, it's nice to see everybody this evening. I'm moving into a holiday weekend, and so we're gonna hopefully not keep you all that long tonight. I'll try my best. Again, thank you, Neil, for reminding me that I had not provided the link. So now you all have the link to the survey, and I've asked the commission members to take the survey because you are residents, and so obviously that would be appropriate, and it also helps us to determine if the survey is working. And Doug, I think you said, and Regina said you already took it and it's working okay for us. So yes. So what I will do is at every meeting, or maybe every other meeting, depending on how many responses come in, I'll give you an update as to how many people participated and, things, sort of general overviews. I guess, before we get into actually the next section of the charter, does the commission have a way of getting that link out to as many residents as possible? I guess that would be my question. And having said that, I did send
Debbie,
it.
you're really breaking up for me. Is that true for everybody else or is it just me?
No, just you.
Okay. Well, you know what, Doug, maybe a different spot in the room, or sometimes that helps if you move a little bit. I did send it so the commission members know. I sent it to Mick, Paula, and Bethany Williams and asked them to put it on the website and any other publications or communications that they have. So I took care of that, but I wasn't sure if, I'm assuming who's, is it Bethany? Do you control the Facebook page?
Kirsten and I do it. We can certainly, one of us can post it on there.
Yeah, that would be good because a lot of people are probably logging on to that. I didn't know if the city had any other way. Sometimes the press, as a public service, will publish the link. And if they do it on their online site, that's great because people can just click on that link. So I don't know if the press there would do that.
Maybe we can share it around the like the local groups on Facebook and whatnot.
And you have the PDF, so whatever hard copies you want to make and send out, when I get back to Pittsburgh area, which is around the 15th, I can start checking for drop-offs, and we can get those put into the online survey too, so that they'll all be in one place. So any comments, questions, anything else?
I'll have Paula make me out some hard copies to take over to the school after the holidays, so they can have them sent out to the parents.
Okay, and it does have the SurveyMonkey link on it also, so they can either do it by hand or they can actually log in and do it online, so they can do it either way.
Okay, cool.
So.
Yeah.
Okay, do you guys have a screen there that I can put up the next section? Regina, can people see that?
Yeah, it's on the big screen in the city building.
Okay, great.
If there's anybody here but me, so.
Okay. So the next section that I wanted to focus on this evening was the appointed officials. We did elected officials and legislation last time. So now we have some appointed officials that we have to deal with. And this gives Regina a chance to set the qualifications and responsibilities and duties of the city manager. So I thought that's interesting for you. So the first one, yeah, we want to deal with is the city manager. And you have a lot of, obviously a lot of flexibility with these particular positions because they are appointed and the city can set whatever qualifications and duties that they would like to see here. There are a few places where, you know, state law is going to intervene, and I'll tell you where those are. But so I've highlighted where I thought the commission should have some discussion, and I'll point out some other things that where the state law pretty much controls. So the first piece basically says that they're appointed by council. The city manager is appointed by council, and it should be solely on the basis of his or her executive administrative qualifications, experience, and education. So these are the qualifications that are generally in these ordinances, but again, you have some flexibility. So the city manager shall have a bachelor's degree in public, municipal, or business administration or related field. And then B basically says a degree in another field may be considered based on the experience of the individual. And then the third qualification that I have in there is that the city manager should have a minimum of 5 years experience in a management position in a local government. And again, there's flexibility around these, but sort of want to throw it open to what people think about those qualifications.
I like them.
Yeah, I do too.
But for A, could we put shall have a minimum of a bachelor's degree?
Yep.
And bachelor's degree capitalized. This is the English teacher going, oh, it's not capitalized. Oh.
Okay. That's helpful.
Yeah.
Is everybody's okay with that?
I am.
We have to get the D in degree capitalized too, just to make it grammatically correct.
Okay. I'll take care of that. That shows up in a couple other places, I think. What about B with maybe considered a degree in a different field could be considered based on experience. So if someone, let's say, has a history degree, but has been a city manager for 5 or more years, that would give you the flexibility to still consider that person.
Isn't saying or related field in A kind of the same as B?
Okay, well, what if it's in math, but the person has experience? I guess I'm thinking of a degree that's totally unrelated, but that person may have the experience from another, another agency.
Yeah.
That's the only reason this is in.
I just need a clarification on the exact, like, the differences in or related field and how.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'm good with them.
I mean, I guess the reason this is here is because, again, you could have but maybe their initial degree was in English or something that was totally unrelated to city management.
Maybe
Would
we
you
should
still
make
want?
the wording match though for B. A minimum of a bachelor's degree in another field may be considered, just to have the wording consistent.
I guess so. that would segregate out associates.
Yeah,
Now, and so what about the 5 years of experience? Is that,
that's fine.
I like that.
I like that.
okay. I don't always do this.
But you're breaking up.
Okay.
We're hearing like every other word.
From me?
Yes.
Sorry about that. I might have a little interference here. Everybody having a problem hearing me?
You're good now.
Yeah, you're clear now.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's the Wi-Fi. It's probably the Wi-Fi here. Okay. So I don't hear any other objections, so that sounds like we're okay here. So moving on to term of office. The codes do allow for employment agreements. However, the manager is an at-will employee, serves at the pleasure of council, but council may enter into an employment agreement by majority vote, and it may include the following. Now, the first one, and I have had this advice from labor attorneys, the codes all say that the term of office cannot be more than 2 years or until the date of the next organizational meeting of the council. So Bonnie, you're shaking your head. You're in agreement on that, whichever's earlier. So for example, I have a problem right now because Johnstown's trying to hire a manager, but they could only give him or her a 6-month contract right now because the next municipal election is this year. So,
Yeah, I mean,
but that's what the
communities do it. They'll give longer ones, but technically you're not permitted to bind a future board on these types of positions. So a future board could legally undo the contract. So you're better off just doing it the right way and not having misunderstandings.
Any questions or comments about the term? I mean, and many managers serve without ever having an employment agreement, but this just says that if the council and the manager want to enter into an agreement, they certainly can do that, but there are restrictions. The employment agreement can also contain all of these things: duties, responsibilities, compensation, pension benefits, resignation, provision, severance, performance evaluation. So any of those other things may also be included in an employment agreement.
This is Jerry.
And in any event, no terms. Oh, go ahead.
I'm just under, it says the employment agreement may also contain, and you have your list. I'm wondering if it'd be better to change may to shall.
I like the shells.
It's up to you guys. If you want shall, I will change it to shall.
I'm good with shall.
Okay. Bonnie, you don't see any problem with that, putting the shall in?
I'm just thinking here as they're, going,
Shall kind of makes it that we have to put that in, where may is, it's optional.
well, it's also obligating you to provide, maybe you don't want to offer pension benefits. Maybe you don't want to offer a severance. So by putting shall in there, you're offering a severance. You're offering, I'm just trying to think like what this potentially obligates you to do. You know, and then how in number 2, how is benefits defined?
Right.
Whereas if you leave it as may, you know, you have the flexibility to pick and choose from the list versus you could say shall
Yeah,
contain an explanation of any of the following that are included in the contract, something like that, versus making them give every single one of these things.
I like that better.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I like that a lot better.
So
Especially
say
since
that
this
again,
isn't-
Bonnie.
So you could say the employment agreement shall delineate any of the following items which may be included in the contract.
Delineate.
Shall delineate any of the following items which may be included in the contract.
I have to say, I'm a fan of fewer words than more words. So
Yeah.
that's kind of convoluted to me, but
Well, the other way you could do this is the employment agreement shall include and do the things that you definitely know. You definitely want to do number one. Okay. You definitely want to do, you know, number 2 maybe. And then maybe some of these other things are the employment agreement may include pension benefits, severance, resignation or termination, you know.
yeah, I guess my concern, and I'll throw it out, is, you know, again, these charters are so hard to change.
Right.
It takes a referendum vote by the voters to change this stuff. So,
I like it the way you had it in the beginning, Debbie. There it says may, and so then they can cherry pick from those things that they want in a contract.
I also like that the may language, it just simplifies the whole thing and doesn't require us to do things that we don't want to do later, like you said. And also the employment agreement isn't even required to begin with. So if we start
Right.
putting the word shall in there, then you're reading, wait, or do we have to do this? Or
Yeah, you're
So,
right.
it
That's a
just
good
makes it a little
point.
confusing to me.
Mhm.
Something where it follows the general employment rules or general employment agreement for all employees of the city of Beaver Falls, or something along those lines, where, you know, it's going to be kind of standardized, you know, as far as what else pertains in here to all the other city employees.
yeah, but I mean, I think that's a little dangerous because, again, every collective bargaining agreement's different. What does that really mean, you know? I think this way council has the ability to negotiate with someone that they're going to hire and, you know, decide whether to include or not to include some of these items. I think it's, again, if, you know, we're not negotiating this, we're writing a charter. So we want to give as much flexibility as possible without contradicting, you know, laws of the Commonwealth and otherwise. So I guess I'm kind of leaning towards the may language, if unless the commission feels strongly otherwise.
Leaving
I
the
think
may sound easier.
I think May's the way to go.
Yeah,
I like May too.
I like simple rather than complicated when possible, because, you know, you don't want to have to be interpreting this thing all the time either.
One other question, what about a residency requirement? I know many of the charters have that.
I was afraid you were going to bring that up. So,
taking her in nuts.
yes, you're right. You're right. It does limit the pool of applicants. I have been, again, I'll use Johnstown as an example. I have helped them 7 or 8 times with manager recruitment where they found the candidate that they wanted, but they could not get that candidate to sell their home and move their family. So I am not a fan of residency requirements. I think that you have to give councils the flexibility to make that their own decision about that. I don't like to see them in charters. I think if the councils, at any time think it's important, they can always make it a requirement. But again, if it's in the charter, you're never going to get the voters to vote it out of the charter if it's a problem. That's just my experience.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, my preference would
thoughts
be
about it?
that the city manager be a resident, but I think I agree with the problems that you've cited. And I think this way the council can look at candidates and, weigh how important that is. So I think you've talked me into not making it a requirement in the charter.
Yeah, I've seen on more than one occasion where they've done a recruitment, the person that they really wanted, but let's just say that person lives 20 minutes away. They're not going to sell their house, move their family out of the school district. They just don't want to disrupt their lives because of a residency requirement. And the councils do usually regret that they included that. And once it's in, you'll never get it out. You really just will never be able to get it out.
Well, and especially if you can only have 2-year term limits.
Exactly. You're
That
asking someone to disrupt their entire life and they can only have a 2-year employment agreement. Yeah, it's problematic. Okay. The city manager may be removed from office by a vote of 3 because so far we've decided we're sticking with 5 members of council. And if this says at any time subject to the terms of the employment agreement. So again, this emphasizes that this is an at-will employee that can be removed by a majority vote of council at any time. But if there's severance provisions or something in the contract, they would have to still abide by that employment agreement. The acting city manager I put in because I've seen this come up from time to time where the manager needs to name someone in his or her temporary absence. And I also like the language that if the manager is not able to appoint someone, if they become, suddenly ill or suddenly unable to perform the duties that the council then can step in and appoint a qualified person to do that. So that's basically what 4.13 says.
I hate to back up.
Sure.
But on the 2-year contracts, do we need to have something in there that says how many times that can be renewed, or do we don't need to do that?
I'd say no.
I don't think you need to. I think those contracts can be renewed forever, right? Bonnie, I don't think there's anything that limits.
No, you're just limiting the term of the contract. You could give them 20 2-year terms.
I just wondered if we needed to specify how many times that could happen, but we don't have to, and it's okay. Okay.
And then again, we're setting out things that the city manager shall do. And I'm not going to read them to you. You can read them over. Basically, providing for enforcement of all the ordinances, directing all the departments. I do have language in here that says that they appoint and remove all department directors. However, those are with the consent of council. So basically what that means is the city manager would recommend a department director, and then council would actually have the final approval of that department director. So I guess I should stop there and make sure that everyone is okay with that.
We're good.
Yes, no, we're good? Everybody's
Good.
no
Yep.
objection? Okay. All other city employees, however, would be appointed or removed by the city manager unless, there's civil service provisions for those various departments. So again, the manager would direct all the departments, negotiate contracts, make recommendations to council. These are just basic duties generally carried out by the city council or city manager, preparing agendas, again, helping council with policy formulation, keeping the council informed about public and city affairs, overseeing and the preparation and submission of the budget, although the actual preparation we're going to assign to this finance officer. So this is just the oversight of the preparation and submission to make sure that it is submitted to council when it's supposed to be. And then carrying out all the policies established by council and performing any other duties that are required either by ordinance or resolution of council. Any questions on the responsibilities, duties? We're all good on those?
Yep.
Okay.
Do you need to-
Prohibition. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna ask, do you need to address nepotism at all? Like nepotism should be avoided, or is it better left unsaid?
Now, I'm trying to think, do we have something in the general provisions about that? I think that's a good point. I'm gonna go back and look at the general provisions, section 1. We had some general language in there, and I'm gonna definitely put additional language under personnel when we get to the personnel and department section. But we could add nepotism here. The two prohibitions that I have in here right now are that the city manager shall neither seek nor hold any elective government office while serving as city manager. And the city manager shall not accept gifts from many persons who may gain personally. But let me see something real quick here.
Under B about accepting gifts from any persons, should it be from any persons or other entities, entities meaning companies, like let's say an engineering company wants to give him or her a gift.
I think that's implied, but you could put it in if you want. I have mixed emotions about the nepotism. So let's say you have the son of your city manager who would be a fabulous successor city manager. I think those kinds of provisions just limit you from the potential of hiring good people.
True.
If you have 5 candidates and you want to rule one out because it's the son of somebody, then so be it. But what if that's your best candidate?
True. I mean, you do have the contract to safeguard.
I hate to see any unnecessary restrictions on your ability to hire the best person.
I agree. I can give a specific example. We hired Jerry's son for the code office, and he was an excellent hire, the best candidate, and he did a great job. I wish he was still working for the city. He moved from Beaver Falls and now is a code officer in Cranberry, which was a nice step up for him, and I understand why he would make that transition. But he was a good hire, a good employee. So I agree with you, Bonnie. I think it just restricts you. We knew when we hired him that there would be some people who would say, oh, he just got hired because of, he's Jerry's son, but he did a great job, and people respected his work, and that really was never an issue. So
And
I agree with
you
you,
can
Bonnie.
often find children, cousins, siblings, whatever, that, maybe the son, got involved because the dad was the borough manager and worked there part-time in the summer. And now, I don't see any benefit to those kinds of restrictions.
And I just checked the general provisions, and it basically says under the ethics portion that the city may adopt an ethics ordinance, and that's where you would spell stuff like that out, I think, in a more comprehensive way if you wanted to have it in there. Putting, again, and I have to remind myself of this, and I'll remind everyone of this regularly, simpler is better. When you put too much stuff in the charter, it just creates problems in the future, because if it's a problem, it's so hard to change. Okay, so we do have under the department accountability that all departments, offices, and agencies are under the supervision of the city manager, and they shall be administered by a department director. Again, the directors are appointed with the consent of council. The city manager may serve as, this is one I wanted to throw out to you. I've seen this in a number of charters, that the city manager may serve as department director of one or more departments, offices, or agencies. So if you didn't have, for instance, a department of community development, you might want, city manager might say, well, I'll direct that department also. Or the city manager could make a decision to have a department director head up 2 departments. So let's just say community development and code enforcement. So this just gives the city manager some flexibility around the departments. On the other hand, we don't have to put that language in at all if you think it's overkill to have that language in there.
That would still require the consent of council, right?
Correct, because all department directors are appointed with the consent of council. So the city manager could go to council and say, and Bonnie and I have lived through this, so I wouldn't recommend it, but I could be the manager and the finance director. And I would not recommend that by any, but the manager could, maybe one of the smaller departments basically say, I'm going to oversee this. They would still need the consent of council. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
It makes sense.
Okay, bond, that's pretty typical. The city manager shall provide a bond that's in an amount to be approved by council, and it's paid for by the city. And Bonnie, this is in a lot of charters. I mean, I don't know if it's necessary when you have crimes coverage and other things, but it's pretty typical to require that bond.
I've seen it both ways. I mean, definitely, you want errors and omissions insurance paid for by the city, which would be comparable, I think. I don't
I
think
mean,
it hurts. It certainly doesn't hurt to have it. Anybody that, and certainly the treasurer or whoever your, financial officer should be bonded for sure.
Yeah, exactly. This I'm gonna fix real quick here because it was in the wrong, it was in the wrong place. Okay, I don't know, Doug, maybe you know this. Do they currently have to provide a bond to city manager?
I'm not
Is
sure
that
about the
something that's
city
required?
manager, definitely the
I
treasurer.
know the treasurer did. Yeah, I know the treasurer did because there was that bit of an issue, but
Yeah,
okay. I mean, you guys can decide whether this should be in here or not. Again, like Bonnie said, typically the city manager is covered under the public officials, errors and omissions, and there's usually also crime coverage in the general liability insurance for municipalities. So I don't, this might be a bit of overkill.
I do think
I'll
though,
highlight.
with the shift to the city manager having more responsibilities, that maybe this isn't a bad idea, and it's paid for by the city, so.
Yeah, and thinking it through, just talking out loud, if the city manager doesn't qualify for a bond, I guess that's a red flag, right?
I would think so,
So-
yeah.
Yeah, so basically, yeah, you might want to have that in place. Okay, anything else on the city manager before we move? Anything that you think needs to be there that we haven't talked about, that we haven't included? If not, I'm going to move to Chief Finance Officer. This would be the second appointed position that we're going to deal with. Let's see, this is wrong. Let me put this, make this heading. Okay. Oh no, okay. Oh, heading 2. Okay. So we're saying here, and I think we agreed to this, that the council shall appoint, I think we should say appoint here. Shall appoint the chief financial officer. Oh, wait, that's why, because I said, okay, wait a minute. Provide for an office of finance. So the council shall provide for an office of finance in the administrative code. And the CFO shall be appointed on the basis of financial and accounting qualifications, education, experience, with special consideration given to applicants with training and experience in municipal government operations in the area of public finance. So that's sort of the preamble here. I have the CFO appointed by the city manager with the consent of council because they will act as a department director of the city's finance office. And then again, we want to talk about qualifications. And I know, Regina, I'm going to capitalize this right here, right now. In finance, accounting, public or business administration from an accredited four-year college or university. Again, do you want us to have this say bachelor's degree?
Yeah,
So I guess the question is, for the finance officer, do you want to accept a bachelor's degree in another field?
I would think I'd want it in some form of finance field. I don't think I want a CFO that's a history teacher.
Unless they
Yeah.
have experience in public finance.
Yeah, unless they were an accountant before they were a history teacher, then that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you have relevant work experience, I mean, my bachelor's degree is also in English, Regina, and I manage a bank. So if you were looking at my degree alone, I would not have the experience necessary, but work experience is what got me where I am. So I think if you could say, I think it's the same type of thing where you can say relevant work experience.
Right, if they have the experience and the years of service, yeah.
Yeah, I think.
I'd hire you.
Not applying.
Maybe you should.
So this number 3 is kind of my general bias, but you know, there is a national and Pennsylvania Government Finance Officers Association. I think the CFO should become a member. Again, this may not need to be in the charter. I think Bonnie's going to tell me it probably doesn't need to be in the charter. But I have seen this in charters where the CFO must become a member of the GFOA or its successor organization. And this just, I guess it forces the issue of continuous training, you know.
Is that something that the city would pay for, or would the CFO be expected to pay?
No, the city typically pays for these memberships. So, I mean, I guess I could go either way. My personal bias is if I have a CFO, I want them to be a government finance officer member, but it could go either way, and I don't know if it needs to be in the charter.
Now, you're not requiring the manager to be part of the, the manager's organization.
No,
I don't know.
no.
It might be overkill, again, remembering this is a charter.
Right, that's what I'm thinking. What's everybody else think?
I think it's great for a recommendation after they're hired, but I don't know that it needs to be in the charter. But I do like the idea of continuing education and all that.
Any thoughts?
Maybe we should change it to is encouraged to become a member.
If we're encouraging the CFO, should we also encourage the city manager?
That's a thought, Deb. You could put the CFO may become a member at the city's expense. That way, if they want to participate, the city would pay for it. But you're not forcing them.
Right.
It strikes me as a pretty specific little item there when you've been pretty general in other places, but it would be fine with me either way.
You know what? I think I'm going to take it out because, again, I think, Doug, that point, you made a good point. I think it's too specific for a charter. I think it doesn't really belong there, although I like it. So I'll take it out. So this basically, the next one, 422, basically provides that the CFO can hire assistants, personnel, and consultants. So if you needed someone to, I don't know, prepare a capital plan or something, but only as appropriated in the annual budget.
And we need to
So,
change that shall to a may, right?
Which
okay.
you mean the CFO? Oh, may. Yeah, I'm sorry. You're right. May. Yes. With the approval of the city manager, the CFO may hire assistants, personnel, and consultants as necessary to carry out all the duties and assignments of the city's finance offices as appropriated in this annual budget. And then we have the list of responsibilities. So some of the things we're assigning to the CFO are things that would and have been done by the treasurer and controller. So the CFO shall collect all the taxes and fees. They're responsible for the performance and oversight of the entire financial management system, responsible for the preparation of the annual budget and the capital improvement plan under the direction of city manager, regular financial reporting to council and the city manager, including but not limited to budget performance, cash flow, and balance sheets. Shall provide for secure deposits of all city funds. So those are the must, that, you know, the CFO must or shall be responsible for those things. Obviously they're, and actually we should probably have that other duties and responsibilities as assigned. Okay. Again, I have these two prohibitions: that they shall not hold any elected governmental office while serving as a city CFO. And I think that's really important to avoid conflicts of interest of any kind. You want your CFO probably to be as pure as you can get it, and not accepting gifts from any persons or entities who may gain personally from any transaction. And here again, we have the bonding requirement in an amount. And here we have I put an additional clarification here to be approved by council, but also in an amount sufficient to cover the taxes and real estate duplicate, which is pretty standard for anyone who's going to be collecting all the taxes for the city. Anything else on the CFO? Any thoughts?
I had one question. Issues like, for example, requiring an outside and requiring audit, does that come under this, or is that down when we talk about those kind of things?
Those contracts, you mean with the independent CPA?
Right.
Those are generally approved by the council through an RFP. And when we get into, so there's going to be a whole chapter on finance, and that's where we'll probably specify how that's to be handled, that it'll, you know, an independent audit would be required and how that's handled.
Okay.
But that's more council than it is the CFO, although obviously the CFO is involved, totally involved in that. Okay, Bonnie, here's your thing. Council shall also appoint a city solicitor who is the chief legal advisor to the city council, city manager, and all municipal departments, offices, and agencies of the city. City solicitor shall perform any other duties prescribed either by this charter, by ordinance, or applicable law. Again, this is a city council appointment by a majority vote. The solicitor is appointed for an indefinite term. That's typically what I see, don't you, Bonnie? It's indefinite. And it may be a person or a law firm, partnership, association, or similar. Does that look okay? You're muted. You know you're muted. Okay.
I was just shaking my head.
I
Yes.
was just shaking my head. Yeah. Okay. This qualification, I don't know, should it be more than this? I mean, it must be an attorney, obviously licensed to practice law in the Commonwealth and in Beaver, is it, I mean, should it be anything beyond that?
You don't get a specific license for the county. You just
So that comes
license to
out.
Pennsylvania.
So they don't have to have any special admission to any bar or anything?
No. As long as you're licensed in Pennsylvania, you can practice anywhere in the state.
Okay. Compensation shall be appointed either on a full-time basis, part-time basis, retainer basis. The solicitor shall be compensated as provided by council in the annual budget, shall not receive fringe benefits unless the city decides to appoint a solicitor as a full-time employee.
I think all that's good. I would go back to qualifications and make sure that they have sufficient malpractice insurance. You'd be shocked at how many they are.
You know what, I might actually make that a separate,
Whatever.
yeah, insurance.
And they need to provide proof of that.
Is it called malpractice?
Yes, malpractice insurance. And provide proof annually.
I'll just add it here, annually.
Because that's another thing some of these attorneys do. When they get hired, they'll get it and then they cancel it. I mean, it's really,
Because it's expensive.
yeah. But you don't want an attorney that can't get or is too cheap to pay for malpractice insurance.
Does that sound okay to everybody that I added that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Question. Could you explain to me the reason why they don't have a term like the city manager that's bound to the term of the council?
Well, I would say, and Bonnie can add to this, unfortunately, the term limit is in the borough, is in the codes. It's in all the codes. It's in the third class city code, the borough code, the township. There's nothing that I know of in any code that limits this, right, Bonnie?
I couldn't understand your question, Bethany. What was it?
Why does a city solicitor only have an indefinite term when the city manager has a definite term?
I think the manager should also have an indefinite term, but, because if you find out you made a mistake, now you're screwed. But the city solicitor is such an intimate relationship that they always just serve at the whim of council.
And there's nothing in the codes that limit this.
No,
Unfortunately, with the city manager, the codes do limit it. So we're just basically being consistent with the codes.
well, and to clarify, Bethany, indefinite could be a day. I mean, it's not necessarily indefinite because it's going to be forever indefinite. It could be indefinite. Indefinite is just, it's not a defined term.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, now having said that though, I mean, in a charter, you could actually make it renewable every 2 years or with every new council, but I don't think it's a good idea.
No, you do not want that.
The solicitor acts as an advisor, and you're right, it becomes a really personal kind of relationship, but they're not an employee in the way that a city manager is. So I think making the solicitor different is a good idea.
Yeah.
Is everybody hearing that echo?
Yes.
Are there two microphones on in the city chambers, maybe? Maybe Jerry's and Beaver Falls?
No, Jerry. Oh,
I'm getting some tech IT support here. Okay, do we have an echo now?
I don't hear it. Oh, now I hear it.
Yep, that's what it is.
Maybe everybody mutes unless they're talking would help.
Unless it's me. If it's me echoing, then it won't help.
I don't think it's you.
Okay.
It is a little better now, though, right?
Yeah, I don't hear it.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So the solicitor, I think we took care of qualifications, powers and duties, attend council meetings as required, furnish formal legal opinions to the council and city manager, except as otherwise expressly provided by council. They are to supervise, direct, and control all the legal work, approve all contracts, bonds, and other legal instruments. This one I tried to word carefully because they don't necessarily have to prepare all the resolutions and ordinances and agreements, but they should review or assist in the preparation. Wouldn't you say, Bonnie? That's the best way to say it. Because a lot of times the managers or department directors will prepare them, but they should always be reviewed by the city solicitor. And then
Yeah, that's what's done now.
Yeah, that's the most, I guess, efficient way that I've seen it happen. Okay. And then council may, at its sole discretion, appoint one or more assistant solicitors if necessary, again, for an indefinite term. I don't know that council would ever do this, but do we, it's.
If you're gonna put it in there, I would say, and in agreement with the solicitor, because I can tell you what, if I was a solicitor and you brought in some buffoon as my assistant, that would not fly.
Yeah, I don't really see the need for this because we have special counsel down here. I think this should come out. Let me take.
Yeah, I agree. F should be removed.
Yeah.
That's really solved by hiring. If you need more than one attorney, you hire a firm. And that goes with your assistant.
But I do think this one's necessary because I do think that from time to time, whether it's labor council or a specific zoning matter or whatever, I think that council occasionally needs to bring in a special counsel, wouldn't you say?
Yes, we had to do this, so this is accurate.
Again, I think it should be with, I don't know if you want to say consent of the solicitor, because again, you could have the best solicitor in the world and you bring in some idiot labor counsel. And
yeah, but I've also seen solicitors, I've seen solicitors object and have to be overridden by it. So I think it's council's decision. I know it's, you would hope that it would be in consultation, but I've actually seen councils with a solicitor pitched a fit, but the council said, no, we need a special labor person or a special zoning person.
Yeah, I know, it goes both ways, so. Okay.
And then the removal again is a majority of council at any time for any reason, with or without cause, they can remove the solicitor and get a new solicitor.
Take out the assistant city solicitor.
Oh, yeah, okay. Any other thoughts about the solicitor, the role of the solicitor? Thanks, Bonnie. I knew you would help us with that one. And then the final position that I wanted to talk about this evening is city clerk. I know we had a little bit of a discussion about this before. The way I wrote this is that the city manager may, with the consent of council, appoint a city clerk. So I made it a may position so that it's still in the charter, but the city manager and with council can decide whether or not to fill that position. But the city manager, wait, did I put that in there? I think I put in, no, I didn't. That the that position should be able to be combined actually with city manager, city clerk, for the purposes of signing documents and, maintaining records. And maybe I should add that. Basically, the role of the city clerk, I kept it similar to what's in the third class city code, minutes, resolutions, agreements, keeping track of all the records and documents of the city, custody of the corporate seal, certifying all the books and bylaws and minutes and any regulations, resolution ordinances. That's primarily what the code assigns to the city clerk. And then attesting all the legal instruments, filing any record or proof of service notices, and then any other duties as assigned. That's basically what is legally assigned to a city clerk. Obviously, we know Paula, we know that Paula does probably 100 other things, but this is the only language that I kept here for now. So again, I want to throw that out and see what you guys think. It's a position that obviously is not in any township or borough or anywhere else, but it's a standard position in a third class city, but not necessary for you to keep or not. It's entirely your decision.
I think it's a position. Maintaining all of that on top of all the other duties the city manager has is just, seems like it's one person who's in.
Well, the city manager would still assign those duties somewhere in the organization, they wouldn't have to necessarily do them themselves. They would just be responsible. If the city clerk wasn't responsible for these things, the manager would be responsible, but could decide how that would get done, how that would be handled. So it would not necessarily be a city clerk, but it would be somebody within the organization to handle all that.
In the interest of checks and balances, would it be better if the clerk had contract with the city? Rather at the under the complete authority of the city manager.
I've seen it done both ways, to be honest. I've seen the city clerk position eliminated entirely, and I've seen it, maintained in the home rule charters of third class cities. I know Jerry's looked at a lot of the charters. I'm sure you've seen it both ways, Jerry.
This is essentially part that these powers and duties are going to have to be added to the city manager.
Bit much.
I think you have may, so that allows it to go either way. So I think it's good, and I think our city will keep a city clerk for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially as long as Paul is there, but it does say that it may be combined with the position of city manager or another position in city government. So you can, as Doug said, keep it intact as a separate position. Some people have, trying to think where they've combined it with like an administrative assistant to the manager and then added the title city clerk. So there's a number of ways you can do it. This gives you a little bit of flexibility with that. Any other thoughts?
I am. Go ahead.
Where would conservation come into play here?
I couldn't hear that. I'm sorry.
Where would codification come into play?
So I think when we did last week's legislation section, we did require that the ordinances be codified. And so the city clerk or whoever this is assigned to would have to do that within that 6-month period. So when an ordinance is adopted, that whoever's assigned this task would have to make sure that the codification is updated on a regular basis. But that was in the legislation piece that we did last week. Anything else on city clerk? Okay, that's all I had for this evening.
Hey, Debbie,
Yes.
just a quick question. I saw that Michael is on leave. Is everything okay with him? I'm not trying to pry, but is that all right?
Yeah, I think these are his Passover holidays.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and if you send him anything, it said that he wouldn't be back till July 5th. So I
Right.
got a little worried too.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think he meant to put April 5th.
Oh.
Because I called one of his colleagues and I asked the same question, is he gonna be off for 12 weeks? Because that was like family and medical leave, and I was like concerned, but
Yeah.
I
Okay.
was
That makes
assured
sense.
that he would be back, that he would be back on Monday, so. That's a good question. I had the same thought, concerns. So next time, just so you know what's coming up, we're gonna talk personnel and departments. I don't wanna, again, overcomplicate it, so it's not gonna be a lot of language around that, but I'll draft something and get it sent out to you in advance so that you have a chance to look at it. Any other questions, comments?
I'm sorry, could you repeat what you said, what we're gonna do next week? I kind of,
Personnel and the departments. We won't have a lot of language around that, just basically establishing, certain basic things. Most of that's going to go in the administrative code. It's not going to go in the charter.
thanks.
Well, thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful,
We
hopefully
need a
long
motion
week.
to adjourn first.
So moved.
Can we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Now, Debbie.
Happy Easter or Passover or whatever you
I'll say
celebrate.
Happy
Happy Easter,
Happy
everybody.
Easter. Have a
Yeah.
nice long weekend, everyone.
Bye.
Good weekend.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.